Do you often wake up in a swimming pool of newsletters instead of your comfortable bed? I know I do. So today let's talk about some of the reasons why the internet seems to be flooded with newsletters and what that might mean for the internet as a whole moving forward. I want to start with a story that began roughly a year ago. You see, I noticed my digital evening habits were becoming pretty unhealthy. Basically, I was doom scrolling TikTok and Instagram for about 2 hours before going to bed, which was terrible for my sleep. I decided I wanted to start using this time more meaningfully, maybe by reading something insightful. But I didn't particularly want to pick up another book as I've got so many half-finished ones already. So I thought I'd find some online articles that would be less time-consuming, but just as interesting for me to read. Eventually, I came across Substack, which is basically a newsletter social media platform. Within about half an hour of using it, I must have subscribed to 30 to 50 newsletters. And like someone hungry at a Christmas lunch, I went back for seconds, thirds, fourths, and many more servings. Now, as you can imagine, over time, I read these newsletters less and less, to the point where now they go straight from my inbox into the trash can. And just like that time I overdid it at the Christmas buffet, I was left filled with regret and acid reflux. In preparing for this video, I did some very quick research, and I found out that on the newsletter platform Beehive, there were roughly 4.5 billion newsletters across all industries as of 2023. It was also estimated there were over 26,000 new individuals publishing newsletters in 2023, which was an increase of 7.17 times from the previous year. And that's just one platform, not including others like Substack, Medium, and LinkedIn. I thought it would be interesting to understand what was driving this booming newsletter growth and what might be some future implications from this beyond just newsletters, but for the broader internet itself. Because you're watching this video, that means you're a smart person. And as a smart person, you would correctly assume that this problem of content overload isn't restricted to just newsletters, but is actually a problem related to any form of online content, from videos on TikTok, to photos on Instagram, to posts on LinkedIn, to the AI spam flooding Facebook. But I think newsletters are an interesting subset of this wider problem because they represent more than just an overabundance of content. And let's explore why. There are two key reasons I can identify as to why so many newsletters started to pop up recently. The first has to do with the challenge of trying to promote your message to an audience amongst an ever-growing amount of other voices clamoring for attention. Over the past several years, many marketers became frustrated trying to stand out amongst the clutter of content on their primary platforms, like Instagram, TikTok, and Snap. And they understood that newsletters were, in theory, a direct one-to-one communication channel with a potential customer. Lots of these marketers began building out content specifically for these channels. A small percentage of these types of newsletters are genuinely insightful. Many are fairly generic, and many more still are just thinly veiled attempts to promote a product or service under a false pretense of sharing free value to a reader. The second key reason for this shift has to do with the risk that comes with creating a presence on tech platforms that may potentially shut down at any given point. You see, businesses like Meta, TikTok, Snapchat, etc. are great places to reach new audiences, but those audiences are essentially gatekept through these very platforms. If TikTok disappears, which as of writing this video has a good chance of happening in the US, then anyone who built a large following on that platform will most likely lose access to them once that platform goes away. Unless, that is, they've managed to create another connection to that same audience off the platform. Hence, an email database becomes a very valuable thing indeed. And what's one way to get someone's email address? The promise of a meaningful, insightful, or valuable newsletter. So far, it might sound like the idea of newsletters are bad in general, but that's not the case. What's bad is an overabundance of shallow newsletters being churned out at a high volume and pace. The biggest culprits of this problem are algorithms. More specifically, algorithms that thrive on a consistent volume of content, regardless of quality, in exchange for audience reach. You see, over time, brands and individuals have seen a shift in the way these algorithms work, in which many of them hide content from publishers who don't post as consistently as others. This created a new habit in content creators to maintain an often unsustainable pace of content creation in order to continue to reach as much of their audience as possible. But not only is it harder for marketers to cut through the noise to have meaningful conversations, It's also hard for these same marketers to consistently have enough meaningful things to say in order to maintain their content posting schedule in the way the algorithms expect them to. Which, of course, is why we see so much content published with little or no meaningful value, only occasionally peppered with truly insightful conversations here and there. And all of this is a result of the attention economy that we live in. In this day and age, attention is one of the most valuable resources you can have. If you can hold an audience's attention, you'll most likely be able to trade on that in some way at a certain stage, either through direct sales to the audience, maybe brand sponsorships or ad revenue, or any other number of ways. And because of this, brands, marketers, and businesses all want to be able to reach their audiences in the loudest way possible. But with most social media platforms being overloaded with noise, the newsletter seemed to be a strong alternative, as the email inbox wasn't yet polluted with every newsletter under the sun imaginable. Now that's no longer the case. Instead of the email inbox being a quiet space where a brand or business could talk to a potential customer, like at an elegant dinner party, it's become just as crowded and hard to cut through as a packed nightclub filled with drunken 25-year-olds yelling in your ear over a techno beat. It's fun, but it's not great for having an engaging conversation. I wanted to wrap up this video with some of my own predictions that may eventuate if things continue the way they are. I think in general we're seeing a growing trend of content fatigue, with pockets of audiences starting to switch off from so many content platforms. And through my quick research, I learned that the 3 top types of media content that people are most tuning out to due to overload are podcasts, communities, and yes, newsletters. Some of the broader societal reactions to this content overload have been trends like Gen Z embracing dumb phones, which remove the endless stream of notifications that distract them, or smaller trends like Instagrammers converting their feeds into a static 9 squares of content that fits into a single phone screen, no longer requiring them to keep publishing in order to maintain their feeds. At a zoomed out scale, we may start to see a shift away from content feed platforms in general, with users opting out of social media platforms and mass unsubscribing from newsletters. Maybe we'll see a rise in some of the AI-driven social media aggregators that summarize your content feed for you. Or perhaps the internet itself will revert to a less connected format, with a return to individual websites over aggregated social media platforms. Obviously, these are just speculations, and there's no way to know. But I think for anyone whose livelihood relies on engaging a broad audience, there might very well need to be a focus on finding alternative ways of connecting with these groups outside of the current digital platforms. And one of the best ways to do that is by finding ways to connect with people out in the real world. And as a side note, of all the newsletters I currently receive, there are only 2 that I actually read consistently, and both of them come from people I've either met in person or had some type of connection with in real life. Just some content for thought. That's it for today. If you enjoyed this video, please like my artisanal newsletter. It's written with a quill and delivered by crows. Share your email address with no one to protect your peace, and subscribe to unsubscribing as your resolution this new year. And if you enjoyed this video, follow this channel where we'll talk about the intersection of business, design, innovation, and humanity. See you next time.